The vast windows of the Imperial flagship's royal suite offered a breathtaking view of the galaxy, but Princess Lyra felt nothing but emptiness as she stared at the distant stars. Her quarters, decorated with the finest materials from 100 worlds, had become her prison over the past 3 years. The guards outside her door were no longer protectors but jailers, posted there by her own brother. She pressed her hand against the cold, clear material of the window. The special glass could withstand the impact of space debris and energy weapons, making it virtually unbreakable, much like the invisible chains that bound her to this life. "Your evening meal, Your Highness," announced a servant, wheeling in a cart laden with delicacies. Lyra turned, forcing a gentle smile onto her face. The servant, an older woman named Mary, was one of the few people who still treated her with genuine kindness. "Thank you, Mary. Would you stay for a while? The silence gets heavy sometimes." Lyra gestured to a nearby chair, her long silver hair catching the light of the passing stars. Mary glanced nervously at the door, but nodded. "Just for a few minutes, Your Highness." She sat down, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "The guards changed shifts early today. There's talk of something big happening." Lyra's pointed ears twitched slightly, a trait of her species that betrayed interest or concern. "Oh, what kind of talk?" "Military movements, Your Highness. More ships gathering than usual. The lower decks are buzzing with rumors." Mary's voice dropped to a whisper. "They say Emperor Marcus is planning something big." Emperor Marcus. The words still felt wrong. 3 years ago, he had been simply her brother, her protector, her friend. Then came the night of burning and betrayal, when he seized the throne in a coup that left their parents dead, and Lyra herself as nothing more than a pretty puppet, trotted out for diplomatic functions to maintain the illusion of imperial unity. After Mary left, Lyra activated her personal data terminal. Her access was limited, but she had learned to work around some restrictions. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, searching for any unusual patterns in ship movements or military communications. What she found made her blood run cold. Fleet formations, resource stockpiles, tactical analyses, all pointing to one thing: an invasion plan. The target made her heart stop: Earth. The young civilization that had recently joined the galactic community. A world known for its diverse ecosystem, rich resources, and most importantly, its remarkably adaptable species, humans. Humans like Mary, who had shown her more kindness than her own people lately. Humans who had brought new ideas and energy to the galactic community. Humans who, despite their shorter lives, lived with such passion and resilience that they had earned both admiration and worry from older species. Lyra's hands trembled as she dug deeper into the files. The invasion wasn't just about conquest. It was about exploitation. Her brother planned to use Earth's resources and its people as tools to strengthen his grip on the Empire. The humans would be enslaved, their world stripped bare, their potential twisted to serve imperial ambitions. She couldn't let it happen. But what could she do? She was just a prisoner in a gilded cage, watched day and night, her every move monitored. A message flashed across her screen. The Imperial flagship would soon make a diplomatic stop near Earth's solar system. A routine visit to maintain good relations, the official announcement said. But Lyra knew better now. It was a reconnaissance mission, a final step before the invasion. As she closed the terminal, her reflection caught her eye in the window. The perfect princess, dressed in flowing robes, adorned with jewels that marked her royal status. But beneath that carefully maintained image, something was changing. The fire that her brother had tried to extinguish years ago was flickering back to life. If Earth was to have any chance, if the Empire was to be saved from her brother's madness, she would have to find a way to break free. And for the first time in 3 years, Princess Lyra began to plan her escape, knowing that failure would mean not just her death, but the enslavement of an entire world. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter now, like distant beacons of hope in the darkness of space. She would need that hope in the days to come. The escape pod tumbled through space, its systems blaring warnings in angry red lights. Inside, Princess Lyra clutched her bleeding arm, trying to stay conscious as the small craft spun away from the Imperial flagship. She hadn't expected the guard to have such good aim. 3 hours earlier, she had put her plan into action. The diplomatic visit to Earth's solar system had brought them close enough to make escape possible. Using codes she had carefully gathered over months, she had created a minor malfunction in the ship's power grid, causing a brief dimming of lights in her section. In those few precious seconds of confusion, she had slipped past the guards, wearing the simple uniform of a maintenance worker that Mary had smuggled to her piece by piece. The old servant had cried when Lyra told her the truth about the invasion plans, and had sworn to help despite the risks. Warning: hull integrity at 65%. The pod's computer announced in its flat voice. Recommend immediate course correction. Lyra tried to focus on the controls, but her vision kept blurring. The guard's energy blast had caught her just as she was sealing the pod's door. If she hadn't moved at the last second, it would have hit her heart instead of her arm. Through the pod's small window, she could see Earth's sun, a bright point in the distance. She had aimed for one of the outer mining colonies, hoping to find help before her brother's ships could catch her. But the pod's damaged systems made that impossible now. Warning: multiple vessels detected in pursuit, hostile intent likely. Lyra forced herself to think through the pain. The pod's emergency beacon was her only hope now, but activating it would lead her brother's ships straight to her, unless her fingers, sticky with silver blood, worked at the beacon's controls. Every Imperial child learned about signal modifications as part of their education. With some careful adjustments, she could make the beacon broadcast on human emergency frequencies instead of Imperial ones. Warning: life support systems failing. Estimated 2 hours of oxygen remaining. The pod shuddered as something exploded near it. Warning shots from her pursuers. They wouldn't dare destroy her. Marcus needed her alive to maintain his image of legitimate rule. But they could disable the pod and bring her back to a fate worse than death. Just as she finished modifying the beacon, a larger explosion rocked the pod. The controls sparked, and Lyra felt her head slam against the wall. As her consciousness faded, she managed to hit the beacon's activation switch. Miles away, Jack Cooper was having a bad day. His salvage ship, the Lucky Star, had found nothing worth selling in this sector. 6 days of scanning space debris, and all he had to show for it was an empty hold and a dwindling fuel supply. "Boss," his ship's AI spoke up, picking up an unusual distress signal. Non-standard frequency, but definitely an emergency beacon. Jack ran a hand through his messy brown hair. "Show me." The signal data appeared on his screen. Something about it seemed off, like someone had modified standard emergency protocols to work with human systems. Either this was a trap, or someone really needed help. "Any other ships in range?" he asked. "None registered, but I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures at the edge of our scanner range." Jack thought for a moment. His military training from years ago told him to be cautious, but something about this situation felt important. Plot an intercept course, but keep the weapons charged just in case. The Lucky Star turned, its engines glowing as it headed toward the signal. Through the main viewport, Jack could see a small shape tumbling in the distance, trailing debris. "Life signs?" he asked. "1. Faint but stable. Non-human." Jack's hands tightened on the controls. Non-human meant complications, possibly trouble, but he couldn't just leave someone to die in space. That wasn't who he was. "Lock on and prepare for recovery," he ordered, not knowing that this decision would change not just his life, but the fate of 2 civilizations. As the Lucky Star approached the pod, distant Imperial ships watched and waited, their commanders debating whether to risk an incident by attacking the human vessel. In that moment of hesitation, hope slipped through their grasp, carried by a salvage ship and its lone human pilot. Lyra woke up to the hum of unfamiliar engines. She lay on a medical bed in a small room, her wounded arm wrapped in white bandages. The technology around her was clearly human, simpler than Imperial equipment, but somehow more practical. "You're lucky to be alive," a deep voice said from the doorway. The human she had seen through blurred vision while being rescued stood there, arms crossed. Jack Cooper, he had called himself. That pod was about to fall apart. Lyra tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. "Thank you for saving me." She studied him carefully. He wore simple work clothes, had kind eyes despite his guarded expression, and moved with the alertness of someone with military training. "Want to tell me why Imperial ships were chasing an escape pod with a royal insignia?" Jack asked, staying by the door. "Those markings on your face, you're from the ruling family, aren't you?" She touched the silver lines that curved along her cheekbones, the marks of Imperial blood that she couldn't hide. "Yes, I am Princess Lyra, and I ran because I had to warn your people." "Warn us about what?" "An invasion. My brother, Emperor Marcus, plans to attack Earth. He wants to use your world's resources and people to strengthen his power." She met his eyes. "I couldn't let it happen." Jack's expression hardened. "That's a serious claim. How do I know this isn't some kind of trick?" Lyra's fingers trembled as she reached for the small data crystal hidden in her collar. "This contains the invasion plans. But there's more. Some humans are helping him. Powerful people who would profit from the invasion." The ship's computer suddenly buzzed an alert. "Boss," a synthetic voice announced, "3 ships just entered scanner range. Imperial signatures." "Damn." Jack moved to a console, checking readings. "They must have tracked us." He looked at Lyra. "If what you're saying is true, I should turn you over to Earth's defense forces." "They're compromised," Lyra said urgently. "My brother's allies would make sure I disappear before I could reveal the truth. Please, I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm asking for your help." Jack studied her for a long moment. In his years as a salvage operator, he had learned to read people, even non-humans. The fear in her eyes was real, and so was her determination. The computer spoke again. "Ships are hailing us. They're demanding we hand over the fugitive criminal in our custody." "Criminal?" Lyra's voice shook. "What are they saying I did?" Jack showed her the message. The Imperial ships claimed she had killed 2 guards during her escape and stolen sensitive military data. The official story was that she was mentally unstable and needed to be returned to medical care. "I didn't kill anyone," Lyra whispered. "I used a stun weapon." "They're lying to give themselves an excuse to board your ship." Jack ran his hand through his hair, thinking fast. If she was telling the truth, this was bigger than just one fugitive. But if she was lying, he could be starting an interstellar incident. The Imperial ships were getting closer. They would be in weapons range in minutes. "Boss," the computer said, "I've analyzed the data crystal. The encryption is Imperial military grade, but I'm detecting tactical files, deployment schedules, and communications with Earth-based contacts." That decided it. Jack had seen enough corruption in his military days to know how power worked. "Hold on," he told Lyra, moving to the pilot's seat. "This might get rough." "What are you doing?" she asked. "Something stupid." He fired up the engines to full power. "But if you're telling the truth, we can't let them take you." The Lucky Star turned sharply, diving toward a dense asteroid field nearby. Behind them, the Imperial ships opened fire, their shots lighting up space. "You're going to get yourself killed," Lyra said, gripping her bed as the ship shook. Jack smiled grimly. "Not today. I know these asteroids better than they do. We salvage operators have a few tricks they don't teach in Imperial academies." As they dove between the spinning rocks, Lyra realized she had found something she never expected. A human who was willing to risk everything on the chance that she was telling the truth. For the first time since her escape, she felt real hope. After 3 days of dodging Imperial patrols, The lucky star approached what looked like an ordinary asteroid. But as they got closer, Lyra noticed subtle signs of habitation, carefully hidden airlocks and camouflaged sensor arrays. "Welcome to Haven," Jack said, guiding the ship toward a concealed docking bay, home to anyone who needs to disappear for a while. The asteroid split open like a flower, revealing a spacious hangar inside. Lyra saw other ships docked there, everything from small traders to modified military vessels. People of various species moved about, but humans made up the majority. "They're all refugees?" she asked, standing uncertainly beside Jack as they walked down the ship's ramp. "Some are. Others are outcasts, explorers, or people who just want to live free from Imperial control." Jack nodded to a group of guards who approached them. "Don't worry. Everyone here has secrets. They won't ask about yours." The guard's leader, a tall woman with dark skin and sharp eyes, introduced herself as Commander Reed. "Cooper," she said, "you better have a good reason for bringing an Imperial royal here." "She has proof of an invasion plan," Jack explained, "and some interesting information about who's helping the Empire on our side." Reed's expression remained stern, but her eyes showed interest. "Follow me, both of you." They were led to a control room filled with surveillance screens and communication equipment. Much of it was Imperial technology, modified to work with human systems. Lyra recognized the handiwork of skilled engineers. "Show me," Reed ordered. Lyra inserted her data crystal into a reader. As the files appeared on the main screen, she explained everything. The invasion plans, the corrupt officials, her brother's true nature. Reed listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. "This changes things," Reed said finally. "We've suspected something was coming, but this..." She turned to Jack. "Get her settled in the residential section. We need to analyze this data carefully." Over the next few days, Lyra found herself slowly accepted into Haven's community. She helped their engineers improve their defensive systems, sharing her knowledge of Imperial technology. In return, they taught her about human ingenuity, how they had taken Imperial cast-offs and turned them into something unique. "Your people would call this primitive," a young engineer named Tom said, showing her a modified shield generator. "But see how we've rewired it. Uses half the power and works better than the original." Lyra was amazed. The Empire had always seen humans as technologically inferior, but here she saw something different. They didn't just copy Imperial technology. They improved it, adapted it, made it their own. Jack visited her often, bringing news and checking on her progress. She noticed how people respected him here, not for his rank or birth, but for his actions. It was so different from the Empire's rigid hierarchy. One evening, she found him on an observation deck, staring at the stars through a reinforced window. "Thank you," she said, standing beside him, "for trusting me that day." He smiled slightly, still not sure if it was trust or stupidity. "Maybe both." She laughed, then grew serious. "These people, they've built something remarkable here." "We protect our own," Jack said. "Everyone here has lost something to the Empire or other powers, but together, we're strong." Lyra felt something warm in her chest when he said we. For the first time since her parents' death, she felt like she belonged somewhere. A sudden alarm shattered the moment. Red lights flashed throughout the station. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. A voice announced over the speakers, "Imperial signatures." Jack's face hardened. "They found us. But how?" Lyra's heart sank as realization hit her. "A tracker. They must have hidden one on your ship when they were chasing us." As they rushed to the control room, Lyra saw Haven's people moving with practiced efficiency, preparing defenses, manning battle stations. They had trained for this. But looking at the tactical display showing the approaching Imperial fleet, she wondered if it would be enough. Her brother's forces had found them, and she had accidentally led them straight to these people who had taken her in. Chaos erupted in Haven as the Imperial fleet approached. Commander Reed barked orders from the control center while defenders rushed to their positions. Lyra stood at a tactical display, her heart racing as she recognized the lead ship. "That's General Drake's flagship," she said, pointing to the largest vessel. "He's my brother's most ruthless commander. How did they find us so quickly?" Reed demanded, studying sensor readings. "Even with a tracker, they shouldn't have." "Because I told them." A quiet voice interrupted. Everyone turned to see Tom, the young engineer who had worked with Lyra, holding a weapon. His hand shook, but his aim remained steady. "I'm sorry." "You." Jack stepped forward, but stopped when Tom pointed the gun at him. "Why?" "They have my family." Tom's voice cracked. "The Empire arrested them 3 months ago. Drake promised they'd be freed if I helped find the princess." He looked at Lyra with tears in his eyes. "I didn't want to, but they showed me videos of my sister in prison." Lyra felt sick. This was how her brother worked, using people's love against them. "Tom, Drake won't keep his promise. He never does." "I know that now." Tom lowered his head. "But I had to try. They're my family." Suddenly, the station shook violently. Warning signals blared as Imperial ships opened fire on Haven's outer defenses. "Direct hit on shield generator 2, someone shouted. "Shields at 60%. In the moment of distraction, Jack lunged for Tom. They struggled for the weapon, but Tom was faster than expected. The gun went off with a bright flash. Jack fell back, clutching his shoulder where the energy blast had hit him. Before anyone could move, Imperial troops transported into the control room. Drake must have used the confusion to slip soldiers past Haven's weakened defenses. "Secure the princess," ordered a tall figure in black armor. General Drake removed his helmet, revealing cold eyes and scarred face. "Emperor Marcus sends his regards, Your Highness." Guards grabbed Lyra, while others subdued the Haven defenders. She watched helplessly as Jack tried to stand despite his wound, only to be knocked down by a soldier's rifle butt. "The invasion plans," Drake said, approaching Tom. "Where are they?" Tom pointed to a console with trembling hands. "The data crystal is there. I did what you asked. Please, my family." Drake nodded to one of his soldiers, who shot Tom in the chest. The young engineer collapsed with a look of shocked betrayal. "Your family was executed 2 months ago," Drake said to Tom's body. "Traitors' relatives don't deserve mercy." Lyra struggled against her captors, rage and grief burning in her throat. "You monster. He helped you. And now he can't help anyone else." Drake smiled coldly. He turned to his troops. "Plant the charges. Once we're gone, I want this entire station destroyed. No witnesses, no evidence." "No." Lyra watched in horror as soldiers began placing explosive devices around the control room. She caught Jack's eye. He was conscious but barely moving, blood staining his shirt. "Take her to my ship," Drake ordered. "Emperor Marcus wants to deal with his sister personally." He looked at Jack. "This one comes too. The Emperor will want to know how a simple salvage pilot managed to hide the princess for so long." As they dragged her away, Lyra saw Haven's people being herded into holding cells. People who had shown her kindness, who had trusted her. Tom's body lay where he fell, his face still showing that final moment of understanding that he had sacrificed everything for nothing. The last thing she saw before they transported her to Drake's ship was Commander Reed's face, showing not defeat but determination. The woman gave her a slight nod, and Lyra understood. Haven's people wouldn't go down without a fight. But as she materialized in the cold brig of the Imperial vessel, with Jack being thrown into a nearby cell, Lyra wondered if any of them would survive to fight another day. 3 days in an Imperial cell felt like an eternity. Lyra sat in darkness, listening to the hum of engines carrying them back to the Imperial capital. In the cell next door, Jack hadn't made a sound for hours. The guards had taken him for questioning twice already. "Still alive over there," she whispered through the thin wall. "Takes more than a few Imperial thugs to break me." Jack's voice was hoarse but determined. though I have to admit, they're trying their best." Before she could respond, the ship's engines changed tone. They were dropping out of hyperspace. Through her cell's tiny window, Lyra saw the glittering towers of the Imperial capital emerge from the darkness. "Princess," General Drake's voice came from the cell door. "Your brother awaits." Guards escorted her to the throne room. Jack dragged along behind her. The massive golden doors opened to reveal Emperor Marcus seated on their father's throne, wearing their father's crown. "Dear sister," Marcus smiled, but his eyes remained cold. "Welcome home." This was never home. Lyra stood straight despite her chains. "Not since you murdered our parents." Such dramatic accusations. Marcus waved his hand. "I protected our empire from their weakness. They would have given too much power to the lesser species, especially these humans." He glanced at Jack with disgust. "These humans," Lyra said, "showed more honor and courage than you ever have." Marcus laughed. "Honor, courage. Watch this." He pressed a button on his throne's arm. A large screen lit up, showing Haven. Imperial ships surrounded the asteroid base, weapons ready. "Fascinating design," Marcus said. "Hidden in plain sight, using our own cast-off technology. But now it will serve a greater purpose, showing everyone what happens to those who defy the Empire." "No." Lyra lunged forward, but guards held her back. Then something unexpected happened. As Imperial ships opened fire, Haven's shields flared to life, stronger than before. Hidden weapon ports appeared across the asteroid's surface, returning fire with devastating accuracy. "What?" Marcus stood up, his composure cracking. "Drake, you said they were defenseless." "They were, Emperor." Drake looked confused. "We destroyed their shield generators." A new voice filled the throne room as Haven's communication signal broke through Imperial barriers. "Did you really think those were our only defenses?" Commander Reed's face appeared on the screen. "Princess Lyra didn't just help us improve our systems. She showed us all your weaknesses." More ships emerged from hiding spots around Haven. Vessels that had escaped during the attack, carrying many of Haven's people to safety. They had planned for this moment. But that wasn't all. Other ships appeared, dropping out of hyperspace, Imperial vessels, but flying different colors. "Remember me, brother," a familiar voice transmitted across all channels. Admiral Ben, their oldest brother who had disappeared years ago after opposing Marcus's coup, stood on his bridge. "You're not the only one who can build alliances." Marcus's face twisted with rage. "Traitors, all of you." He pulled out a weapon, aiming at Lyra. "If I fall, you fall with me." But he had forgotten about Jack. Despite his injuries, the human pilot moved with lightning speed, tackling a guard. In the chaos, Lyra broke free, grabbing a fallen weapon. "It's over, Marcus," she said, as loyal Imperial troops and Haven's forces breached the throne room. "Your own people see you for what you are now." Marcus looked around wildly, seeing his supporters desert him. General Drake had already disappeared. Like all bullies, he abandoned his master when real strength appeared. "The Empire needs strength," Marcus shouted. "These humans, they'll destroy everything we built." "No," Lyra kept her weapon steady. "They'll help us build something better. Together." As guards took Marcus away, Lyra rushed to help Jack stand. He leaned on her shoulder, grinning despite his bruises. "Quite a rescue plan," he said. "You knew your brother would bring you back here." "I hoped." She supported him carefully. Haven's people needed time to evacuate and gather allies. My capture gave them that time. You risked everything on that hope. Lyra looked at the screen where Haven's ships fought alongside Imperial vessels loyal to the old ways. Humans and her people working together against tyranny. "Sometimes," she said, watching her brother Ben's ships protect Haven's vessels, "hope is all you need to start changing the world." 1 month after Marcus's capture, the Imperial Palace buzzed with activity. Representatives from Earth and the Empire gathered in the Grand Hall for a historic moment. The coronation of a new empress and the signing of the first true alliance between their peoples. Lyra stood before the great mirror in her chambers, looking at her reflection. Gone were the ornate robes of a decorative princess. Instead, she wore a simple but elegant uniform that combined imperial and human design elements. The silver lines on her face seemed to shine brighter now, no longer marks of imprisonment but symbols of positive change. "Ready?" Jack asked from the doorway. His wounds had healed, though he still carried a few new scars. He too wore a formal uniform, marking his new role as Earth's official ambassador to the Empire. Almost. Lyra touched the simple crown waiting on its cushion. "Did you ever think we'd end up here when you found my escape pod?" "I was just hoping not to get shot," Jack grinned. "Though I failed at that part." A knock at the door interrupted them. Admiral Ben entered, looking more like the kind brother she remembered from childhood. "It's time, sister." The grand hall fell silent as Lyra walked down its length. Faces familiar and new watched her passage. Commander Reed and the survivors of Haven, imperial nobles who had supported her claim, Earth's diplomatic corps, and common people from both civilizations who had been invited to witness history. At the front of the hall, two thrones stood side by side, one imperial, one Earth-made. They symbolized the new way forward, two civilizations working as equals. Lyra knelt before the high priest, but when he moved to place the crown on her head, she raised her hand. "Wait," she said, her voice carrying through the hall. "Before you crown me, I want everyone to hear the truth." She stood, facing the gathered crowd. For too long, the Empire has hidden its wrongs behind ceremony and tradition. That ends today. My brother Marcus didn't just seize power. He was helped by corrupt officials from both our worlds who wanted to profit from war and suffering. Murmurs ran through the crowd as she continued. "Those conspirators have been exposed and will face justice. But more importantly, we've learned that real strength comes not from dominance, but from unity. Look around you. See how much stronger we are together than apart." She gestured to the Haven survivors. "These brave people showed me that technology means nothing without heart, that titles mean nothing without honor. They taught me that true power comes from protecting others, not controlling them." Lyra turned to Jack, smiling. "And one brave human taught me that sometimes the greatest act of strength is choosing to trust." Taking the crown from the priest, she placed it on her own head. "I take this crown not by right of birth, but by choice. My choice to serve both our peoples, and your choice to trust me with this responsibility." The hall erupted in cheers. As the formal alliance was signed, Lyra saw tears in many eyes, human and imperial alike. Even her brother Ben looked proud. Later, during the celebration, Lyra found a quiet moment with Jack on a balcony overlooking the capital. "You know," he said, "when I was a salvage pilot, I thought finding valuable cargo was lucky. Then I found an escape pod with a revolutionary princess inside." Lyra laughed. "Lucky for both of us." She looked at the stars, the same stars she had once stared at in despair from her prison suite. "We have so much work ahead. Changing an empire isn't easy." "Good thing you're not doing it alone." Jack took her hand, and she felt the warmth of his faith in her. Below them, the city glowed with lights from 100 worlds. Imperial ships and human vessels moved together through the skyways, their crews working side by side. In the distance, she could see the new haven, no longer hidden but standing proud as a symbol of cooperation between their peoples. The chains that had once bound her were broken, transformed into bridges between worlds. As Lyra stood there with Jack, watching their peoples celebrate together, she realized that sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating an enemy, but from transforming them into friends. And somewhere in the vast galaxy before them, other stars waited to be reached by their united strength.